What really blows me away in a lot of situations and can tilt the scale for me and my team as well when they're evaluating is someone shows up on that call and they've done their research. They know who we are, they know what we've done, they can already have a good understanding of some of our business objectives instead of just the very generic Q&A discovery script type of thing as well.
This is You Should Talk To, a podcast for busy marketing leaders who are looking for support and tips on getting shit done. In each episode, Daniel Weiner interviews marketing leaders and discusses their experience, successes, and failures around hiring agencies. If you're interested in finding and choosing the right agency partner, then let's jump in.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the You Should Talk To podcast. I am Daniel Weiner, and this podcast is still currently brought to you by You Should Talk To until a sponsor ponies up, which hopefully will happen right after this call. You Should Talk To pairs brands and marketers for free with vetted agencies and or freelancers for marketing and tech needs. Why? Because finding a great agency is a pain in the ass. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by a friend as well as a member of my board of advisors, Nicole Smith, who's VP of Marketing at Tackle. Thank you so much for joining us, Nicole. Why don't you give us a little Clips Notes about you and Tackle as well?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. It's always so fun to talk to you and just excited to be on your podcast.
Thank
Um,
you.
so I'll guess the short version of my career and how I ended up at Tackle is I've been a bit of a hybrid marketer. I grew up on the agency side of things and was in PR before I made the switch over to running marketing for our agency I was at, which is really focused on PR for B2B healthcare IT companies. And while I was at that agency, I started running their marketing automation division to help our customers stand up their marketing automation platform and build demand gen programs to really connect marketing and sales together. And that was really my first startup experience that I had. And we were eventually acquired by a PE firm and merged with 5 other different agencies. And after a year, I decided to take the next step there, and I went to an early stage startup in Atlanta that was focused on customer success space. And I had the opportunity there to build their marketing team from the ground up and all the programs associated with that. And I stayed there for about 4 years and before I made the move over to Tackle. And so now I'm lucky enough, I think, to be getting to do this for the third time of building a marketing team from scratch. I've been at Tackle for 2.5 years and started as the first marketer again. And we have a team now of more than 20 people. And I've seen Tackle get to go from a seed stage company to now we've received our Series C round. Tackle exists to help companies accelerate and operationalize a cloud go-to-market strategy. So we work with the 4 major cloud marketplaces: AWS, Microsoft, Google, and Red Hat. And we currently work with more than 450 software companies today.
Has building out a team the third time been any easier than the first two?
I think so. I think I've learned a lot along the way of, what to look for when you're building a high performing team at a startup and the kinds of people you want on your team, especially when you're building early stage and the people you want that are going to grow with you. And it's never perfect. I've made some mistakes along the way, for sure. And I think you learn from those, but I do think it's been easier this time around for me.
I sometimes forget that you have the agency experience as well, since you've been
Yeah.
brand side since I've known you. Do you think that it obviously gives you some good insight for this conversation, but do you think it kind of prepared you more for A, your role, but also B, when you're vetting and looking for agencies since you've been on that side?
For sure. And some people will probably think I think I'm critical of agencies probably because I was on the agency side. And I think the agency I was at had a pretty high bar. So I can be overly picky about agencies and how I expect the relationship to work. But I do think it also really prepared me for my role in what I'm doing and understanding the importance of brand and all aspects of marketing and investing in that from a very early stage and being able to tell the company story. And I'm a huge believer in brand driving demand as well.
No, that makes total sense. And you've got all of this experience, and I feel remiss to not mention that it just took both of us 14 minutes to get our equipment working for this call. So while you can build a marketing organization and I can start a company, figuring out the equipment, neither of our fortes apparently.
Yeah, definitely, have some challenges on the technical side.
I was gonna say, now that you've been in the leadership roles, brand side for a few years, when you are looking for agencies, vendors, freelancers, any sort of third party, what is it typically that you're looking for? Is it specialized experience? Is it more about the people you're working with? Fill us in on that.
Sure. I think it can vary a bit, but I would say I'm more of probably looking for like specialized experience when I'm first going out and looking at, a different agency for those situations, sort of like you. We're also starting a podcast. So I was very specific of like, we want to look for a podcast agency, like someone that only specializes in this area. We also redoing our website right now. So we are working with a company that only does websites. And I think it's hard for agencies to be everything to everyone and have so many different services. And that's kind of where I think I've seen a breakdown of quality in some of those areas. So I do think I tend to look at company or agencies that really are specialized in those one areas when I'm probably looking and hiring those firms for myself.
I'll pretend my feelings aren't hurt that you didn't come to me for the website and podcast needs, but where do you look when you are in need of a third party? I know like dark social now is a hot term in the world. Are you going to communities? Are you asking, a few trusted advisors and stuff like that? Where are you finding recommendations for vendors?
Yes. So I should be going to you a lot more now because that's you should talk to. That is what you are doing. And
Absolutely. That's
yeah.
what I hear at least.
I usually start with my team because my team has such diverse experiences and they've all come from different companies and backgrounds that have used a lot of these tools or agencies before. So I'm going to ask them like, hey, who have you used on this side before? What experiences do you like them? Should we use them again? And then if they've had a few recommendations, like that's kind of our short list of where we start. And then I'm going to go into communities I'm in, like Pavilion or CMO Coffee Club. And I usually start like just doing a search there of seeing first, like I might search website agency or look at the list I have and search and see what's been said about these companies. And then I'll probably like, if there's not enough data, I'll ask a question and maybe even say like, hey, if anyone worked with these companies, like would love any insights or perspective. I'll set up calls with people to get their points of view. And again, this might be even before I've like set up a call with these agencies, but I want to know if they're worth our time to work with. And then like I trust my relationships and my people's relationships on my team. And I think that's why it's like more important than ever that people build strong brands and even stronger advocates that will go talk about you and you have a good experience with them. But that's why, it's so valuable because people do talk, like you said, in these dark social communities and it, something could be, you could lose a deal before you even get a chance to get to the plate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. How often are you getting hit up by vendors? With your title, I presume it's every 12 seconds, but how often are agencies or just third-party vendors in general sending you email or LinkedIn and stuff like that?
I probably get maybe five or I would say probably 5 emails or LinkedIn messages a day about different services or from different agencies on with pitches.
And is there any way that any cold message like that can stand out to you? Or is it not for anybody listening who's thinking of sliding in your DM, so to speak? Is there any way that a random message like that can stand out as a vendor or an agency?
There is. I mean, and I have responded to some of the cold emails and outreach. Usually if they send me a box of wine, that works.
Your chance, yeah. Concert tickets, cash, all
Right.
the puppies, whatever
Yeah.
you can send. Nicole is
Vacation.
happy to take a call. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The more expensive, the better.
Yeah. No, I think it's really like people who have done their research on us and maybe and understand like my problems and challenges and what I'm facing and or like what I might be facing. And it's not like the generic cold pitch email. I definitely have had situations where and sometimes it is like I'm not going to respond after the first one, but I will read stuff and like you can understand that consistency and there's a lot of personalization to it. And they keep sending me like certain different articles that I might want to read, or they'll talk about like, hey, we just helped this company do X, Y, and Z. And I think you're at the same stage. This is what I see, like based on some of your marketing efforts that you would probably be in a situation to also solve. Like, could we just have a, 15-minute call to even see if this could be a fit? And if someone does that, like, and really takes the time to understand and compare why I might need them, those things stand out to me more than others. And I'll also sometimes respond and be like, we're really not in a situation to be talking like at this point, but hit me up again in 6 months.
with a
Yeah,
package of wants,
exactly.
or that vacation. No, you bring up a good point. Like, my kind of unpopular opinion sometimes is that I don't think the work matters. And what I mean by that is, if, like you said, if you don't have a good process, or the people you're dealing with aren't, putting on a good show, as I would say, you don't even get to do the work. If you
Right.
have super talented people, it doesn't matter if they don't get to do anything for you. When you're looking at vendors and evaluating and stuff like that, is, you just brought up kind of like category experience. We did this for somebody in your space, or
Mhm.
someone similar. Are you evaluating based on those things, or is it more like you're looking for people you like and trust, and then you trust them to do reasonably good work on the back end?
I do usually like people that I think have dealt with similar situations of like what we're doing before. So I do think that is something I do. I mean, the personal relationship is very important, but I might say like right off the bat, if I'm just thinking about how people approach me. So I would say like if I'm approaching a vendor, one of the things I always think about is like you say that 85%, everyone knows like 85% of the buyer's research is done before they get on a call with someone. And like we just kind of talked about that with dark social. And I don't truly believe that like the vendor agency feels the same way a lot of times. Like, I don't think they've done their research or homework before the first call. It's usually very little in my situations that I see it. I would love to see that switch. So what really like blows me away in a lot of situations and can tilt the scale for me and my team as well when they're evaluating is like someone shows up on that call and they've done their research. Like they know who we are, they know what we've done, they can already have a good understanding of some of our business objectives, and they've almost like put together already their thoughts and great questions for us instead of like just the very generic like Q&A discovery script type of thing as well.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot with my agencies, and also when I was at an agency, I can vividly remember sitting in rooms, deciding, like, not necessarily whether or not to be prepared, but how
Mhm.
prepared, and to be prepared with what. Because, to play devil's advocate, we often would say, like, we could get on a call, and if we weren't like briefed super well prior, which I think is super important, like,
Yeah.
if we didn't have all the context, like, we didn't want to show up with something that wasn't applicable, that kind of
Sure.
ruled us out without it. So I presume you're writing world-class briefs and emails and stuff to these people before putting them in the hot seat for these conversations. Absolutely. Can you think of, in your time, other than working at a great agency, any like really, really wonderful, positive agency experiences that you have had? And if so, why? What made them so wonderful? Was it the work? Was it people? Just the experience in general?
Yeah. There's definitely one that like always stands out in my mind. And it was early on in Tackle days. We were updating our website, like doing a complete rebrand, new messaging, and just overhaul of everything. And the first off, like starting from the beginning again, like we had written a brief again of amazing, incredible, the best brief ever in the world of what we wanted, like what our challenges were, what we were hoping, what our scope and budget were. And when we showed up for that first call, they had clearly read it. They were ready to talk business, like, and they had very good questions prepared based on what they had seen in our brief. And like a few other vendors we talked to didn't even read the brief beforehand and showed up and we're just like, so what are you looking for us to do? And let me just tell you about our agency for 30 minutes. And so it really was like, okay, well, that's kind of seemed like a waste of our time. And then I would say they also wanted like to really set us up for success. So at the time we were in a unique position, we were creating a category. And so instead of just saying like, hey, we're going to dive into the copy, they really pushed us to start with a messaging strategy exercise that they led. And we were a really lean team at that point, and they wanted to make sure like our positioning was correct. And at first I was like, we don't need to do this. But it helped us tremendously. And I think the website project would have really gone off track if they hadn't recommended that we start that way. And I think that was a very, very good call on their part, and it helped us all get aligned. And then some other areas that I think really worked well was just over communication. I think I can't stress that enough. And agency or, vendor relationships and how you work with a client, they created a Slack channel for us so we could quickly communicate. They would do email updates, weekly calls. And when things got off track, it was flagged immediately, whether it was on our end or theirs. So they didn't wait for a call to tell us, which really helps reduce friction. And then I would also say, like, if something wasn't correct, like if we were like, hey, this copy's off or this design isn't what we were looking to see, I've had experiences where someone's just like, okay, like we'll go do something else, but they really sought, like, we're seeking to understand what was not right and what we were hoping to see, and asked a lot of great questions so that the next time it was right. And it, of course there were hiccups and mistakes and things that weren't perfect, but when I remember the experience, I think about like how it turned out overall, and I think about the good, and I forget a lot of the hurdles of all of that, I think.
Yeah, I try to remind all the marketers that I talk to, like, the agencies I work with are not perfect. No
Yeah.
agency is perfect. Mistakes happen almost 100% of the time, or there will always be, especially on something like a big website or rebrand. There's going to be something that happens that's a pain in the ass, and it's how they react to it that keeps you as a client versus the fact that you actually had a mistake. That kind of flows into the next question, which I think I know the answer to now, but how do you think you get the best out of your agencies? I've talked to several people about this, and it seems split 50-50, truthfully, between folks in your role of like, do you want a more collaborative process, or do you want to be told, what to do? Even, the first episode of this podcast that I did was with Christy Garcia from Impact. I asked her the same question, and she was kind of both. She said, there are just some times where like I need to be told what to do, and other times is for collaboration and stuff like that. I'm curious your opinion on that. It sounds like the really good experience you had was super collaborative,
Yeah.
overly collaborative.
Mhm. I definitely think the collaborative is one of the reasons, like, why I am outsourcing something and hiring someone for these situations. So I do want that to be collaborative. And it's usually like, I don't have the resources in house to do that. And we need like that strategic partner and arm. So I'm really looking for someone to like be that resource for us to help build a strategy. So they do have to kind of play that strategic role and tactical to help us execute in those areas. And that stands out to me when someone can see that, like play those two roles and really work well with us in those areas, like bring us new ideas instead of us being the idea generator behind everything, kind of see some of that white space that maybe we're not seeing because they're immersed in other ideas or they're seeing other clients do it that way. So bringing things to us and in that way as well.
Gotcha. On the flip side, without bashing anybody, can you think of a relatively or very negative agency experience, and what made that as negative as it was?
Yeah, I think unfortunately there's probably like more negative experiences than positive, which stinks.
That'll be my next podcast. Just
Right?
shit talking, and whoever sends us the most wine doesn't get talked about.
Shit talking.
Yeah. That's my next company too.
But I think this has to do with a lot on like our side as well and like how we set expectations. So I don't think it's all on the agency side. I think it's something like you have to be very thoughtful about of how you approach agencies and your expectations. But I don't know if there's like one experience, but I think there's some common themes that I would call out of agencies of what happens to make it a bad experience. Like I do have one that kind of is top of mind lately, but there's a bait and switch mentality, a bait and switch that happens a lot with agencies, of where someone more senior pitches and then they just pass it off to all the junior team members. They never get on a call unless it's for like a report or you're, quite fed up with something. Then they're like, oh, I better check on and calm the nerves. Or there's lots of churn at agencies and you constantly have new team members joining. And so you have to like get them up to speed again. And it seems like, two steps forward, one step back. And it's kind of frustrating. And then a lot of them, it's just like they don't have an understanding of the space. And although you might hire someone that is a B2B SaaS, PR firm or something, they still haven't exactly like the space we're in is very unique. And so, I feel like I've spent a year at sometimes getting a agency up to speed and being able to really write or talk about what we're doing. And probably the other area is just like poor communication. I talked about that as like a really great thing. And then there's other times where they won't let us know they're going to miss a deadline. They're not responsive, or just, I would also say like the quality side is poor. And instead of missing a deadline, they'll just send something over that is just to get it there on the deadline. But, they haven't really like put time
Yeah.
into editing it or reviewing it in something. So
Missing deadlines is sacrilege. Can't have that. To that end, like once something has crossed into a negative space, do you think those types of experiences can be salvaged and kind of brought back? Or you think kind of once it reaches that point, like trust is broken and it's really hard to get back to a good spot?
I do think they can be like salvaged. And if you have open conversations with them, and I think it takes work on both people's part in that sense, but I've seen it turned around a few times in very positive ways. And then I've also just seen sometimes where it just can't.
Just keeps going down the mountain.
Hmm.
There are so many things that you have to keep, up to speed on as a marketer, especially leading an organization and stuff like that. We've got NFTs, we've got metaverse, we've got all that stuff. What are you most bullish on and excited about just in the marketing space? We've got events coming back in person, all sorts of stuff. I know you've been traveling more for work. What are you most excited about from a marketing standpoint? Or what do you think's next?
That's a good question. I think, events have been something like that I've been really excited about, like getting back in person together with everyone. And we've been doing road shows this year. So that's been really incredible and fun. And I think probably like as I look forward to like what's next and how are we thinking about things for the future, it's almost like I think I'm finally in a position at like my company where we can start making a lot bigger bets on things, and community is a big part of that, and launching communities and how we really start to bring customers together and give them some of those like opportunities to then, help educate prospects and opportunities. And we're doing that with some of our roadshows, and we're launching some programs like that, but to like really do it full scale. And then I think that can turn into like bigger customer conferences for us. And I know that's not necessarily like a huge marketing trend, but I think I've seen a lot of that pop up like during the pandemic of communities. We're involved in a lot of those, and I'm excited to like start building that out through Tackle and what we're doing.
You started and led a whole community. That's how we met. You, if I remember correctly, you turned me down the first time I tried to join. They weren't letting agencies in at the
I know we
time,
did that.
but it doesn't keep me up at night. I promise.
And I think
Have
they're
you?
to you to run the community.
I know. I bet we've come full circle here. Have you seen events, the ones that you're going to at least? Have they come back? Do you think attendance is back to somewhat pre-COVID levels and regularity, or not so much?
I've seen it at the big conferences we go to, that I think people are coming back and attending those. At some of the like roadshows and happy hours we're doing, I feel like people register for them and then they don't always show up to the events. So I feel like I'm seeing lower than average in-person attendance at some of these things, which pre-pandemic it seemed a lot higher. So I don't know if it's just, some conflicts, or people still a little dicey about like, should I come to this, or do they have competing
Yeah.
priorities? I haven't like nailed it exactly of what that is yet.
On the opposite end of that, what keeps you up at night from a marketing and business standpoint?
My gosh, a lot of stuff. But we're a hyper growth company, and so definitely lots of growth goals this year. And with the macroeconomic environment, we're stressed than ever. Deals are taking longer to close. You're seeing lots of craziness in the tech space right now. So I think for me, it's always thinking about pipeline. Like we need more. How do we look at this across marketing and sales and partners, and really think about everything we're doing and how to grow this effectively? We have a big focus right now on developing a lot more integrated campaigns. I like to say that we've been doing a lot of random acts of marketing and not putting all these programs together. And that's something that like we're focused on doing this next second half of the year, and this next in 2023 as well. So I think it just comes down to, prioritization, efficiency, and how we all look at this across the board together so we can maximize our ROI and everything.
You're still actively hiring though for several roles at Tackle though, right?
We are, yeah. I think we have 4 or 5 roles on the marketing team, and then, I mean, probably 30 plus across the organization right now.
What is it? Tackle.io/careers?
I think you're right. You might know our website addresses better than myself. And
I came prepared to this podcast, Nicole,
yeah,
is what I did.
you've helped me source a role. So thank you.
We did. I'm blanking on what the role was. Product manager?
Product marketing manager. Yep.
Product marketing manager. Hopefully so far so good.
Very awesome.
Or we'll have to cut this portion out. That concludes the marketing portion of our conversation. There's 3 questions I plan on asking everybody.
Okay.
So these are more fun and a little rapid fire. But what was your first job?
So first paying job was in high school, and I was a hostess at a restaurant in Dunwoody called Joey D's. A lot of Atlanta.
Okra? Joey D's Okra?
Yes.
Wow, that is I've been there once. It is wonderful. Pitch black, smoky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not the best place for like a 15-year-old to be a hostess, but it is what it is.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. And then out of college, my first job was I sold office supplies door to door to businesses, like in a sort of a pyramid scheme type company. That was, I did last too long, but you need a job and you need money when you graduate and pick and source.
What was door knocking like back then?
It was very weird.
I imagine it's still weird. I just presume it was a little more normal then.
I mean, maybe, but it was very, trying to get to the decision maker at businesses, like sucking up to the office managers to let us in. I sold a lot of paper. I mean, it was like real life, like the office.
Definitely. Yeah, I was gonna say. I firmly believe everybody should work in a restaurant. I worked as a food runner at Ippolito's
Oh yeah.
in high school and stuff, and
Yes.
gave me a lot of good experience. I think my first paying job was I worked at a car wash illegally, if I remember correctly. So hopefully the statute of limitations has worn off on that.
Yeah.
So no one, we'll have to cut. This whole episode's gonna be 3 minutes long. We're gonna cut half of this. Your death row meal. What's your final meal?
Okay. This is a little bougie maybe, but
I've always known you to be a bougie eater, so
you have. I would probably do like the omakase menu from somewhere like either Nobu or Umi or something. I mean, maybe it's because I'm just not getting like shockingly. We don't have great sushi where I live. I'm in Florida. So when I come back to Atlanta, I need all my great sushi meals and nigiri. And so I just like love a good meal like that. So that would be definitely my death row meal.
sushi would presumably be my my death row meal as well.
Really?
And,
Okay.
yeah, when you get back to Atlanta, Umi should be on the docket for sure.
Let's do it.
And then the final question: who is somebody? Doesn't have to be marketing. Could be anybody who inspires you.
Yes. So I actually I've just gotten very fortunate. Like my CEO and our board really believe in marketing. And, as I'm trying to, again, I want my board of advisors for myself as I continue to grow my career. And I have a great marketing advisor that I've just gotten to start working with. Her name is Kara Lou. She was the CMO at Atlassian and she's done a lot of great things and she advises a lot of hyper growth companies. And she's amazing. And I'm just already learning a ton from her right now.
That's awesome. And you mentioned it, I think, at the beginning, but you guys just launched a playbook or something like that?
We just launched our State of Cloud Marketplace survey. And we really benchmark the industry on what's going on with cloud marketplaces, how spend is changing, what buyers and sellers are both doing. And then we put together our annual State of Cloud Marketplaces report, which we release in September of each year.
Awesome. How can somebody get their hands on that?
They can go to Tackle's website, tackle.io, and find it there. We'd love people to take the survey.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, Nicole, thank you again. I really appreciate you spending time with us today. It was great to chat. I presume the best spot to find you, I wouldn't even dream of putting your email on the overlay here or anything like that. I'll spare you the pitches, but LinkedIn or tackle.io, I presume, is the best way to get in touch with you.
Yep, LinkedIn is great. Like I said, I do respond to messages on LinkedIn as well, so that is fine. And you can always, reach us through Tackle as well.
We'll find out how many additional pitches you get referencing anything from this shortly after the release. But no, thank you as always, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for checking out this episode of You Should Talk To. This show is brought to you by the company with the same name, You Should Talk To, a company that helps marketing leaders find the right agency or freelancer for their situation. If you enjoyed what you learned in this episode, make sure to follow You Should Talk To wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or visit YouShouldTalkTo.com for more information.